Moreira today, and I'm a PGY2 at Temple Northwest Family Medicine Program. Today I'll be talking about mental health and meditation and mindfulness, and just giving a brief overlook in some techniques and things that we can do when it comes to meditation and mindfulness. It's not going to be a deep dive; it's more so of an introduction to things that can be done to kind of address anxiety, stress, and other components of mental health. With that said, oops, it's not switching. There we go. So I have no disclosures today, no financial disclosures for the agenda. So we're just going to briefly talk about mental health and what it is and what affects it. And I'm sure that that's something that everyone is very familiar with, mainly with this new wave of mental health and fitness over the last decade or so. But then we're just going to talk about some breathing exercise, going to go over two of them and teach you all some of those that you can be doing at home or at work or wherever you are. And then we're going to talk about benefits of meditation as well as meditation techniques. Lastly, for 4 and 5, we're going to talk about emotional freedom techniques, and I'll develop that when we get to that, um, as well as the Ho'oponoponopo, which is a Hawaiian mantra technique as well, which is widely used within psychotherapy as well. Um, so it's starting with mental health. It's a broad spectrum. If you look at the World Health Organization, it's a broad spectrum involving not only the well-being of the mind, but also the well-being of the physical components and social components of health. That also translates if you look into American College of Lifestyle Medicine, where the main pillars of lifestyle medicine and mental health are all included within social connections, diet, exercise, as well as stress management and mental health components. So when we talk about mental health, it's not just the absence of mental illness, but it's a holistic component that involves mind, body, spirit, and also social connections. And that's important to differentiate because addressing one doesn't necessarily mean that all the other components are going to be fixed, but being able to acknowledge that challenges may be seen in each of those components. Um, with that said, things that may affect it, and this varies broadly from person to person, and this is very general. I'm sure that everyone has their own stressors in life, but social isolation being one of them. We experienced a lot of that during COVID pandemic. I'm sure that all of us felt it to some extent, but also unemployment, long work hours without rest, access of information, and I say access just because information can be overwhelming, mainly, over this past year or so that we've been seeing like two wars in the world, and now election time is coming, and all of this, and you're bombarded with this, negative and positive information, and things just can get very mixed up and blurry. Um, and besides that, the straightforward one that is always associated to stress is also finances, diet, environment. As I mentioned, mental health has many, many different components. This is just important to keep in mind some of them that are involved in this. And also to be able to identify what it is in your personal life that may be affecting your mental health. Again, not just psychologically, but also physically and within your own environments. When it comes to self-care component, and this is something that we touch on a lot during our visits, mainly when we do health education visits based on focus on lifestyle medicine. But we talk about getting enough sleep, but not just enough sleep. We talk about restorative sleep, meaning that when you wake up, you feel rested. If there's any issues with where you don't wake up rested, that's something that warrants some investigation, just in the sense that sleep is supposed to be restorative. And if there's any level of anxiety or stress or depression that may be affecting that, that's going to affect your entire day. Um, not only that, but exercising and eating healthy foods. And we talk about healthy foods in the sense of nutrient-rich foods, and trying to avoid as much processed foods as possible, um, while trying to maintain at least 150 minutes of exercise a week. With that said, there's multiple other components, which include also just limiting exposure to social media, and or news outlets to an extent, or being selective of the periods of time that you want to focus on just reading the news and updating yourself. And again, that's just to kind of avoid that overload of information. Um, that does not mean, don't inform yourself. It just means you do it during select time so that you don't spend the entire day getting notifications on your phone about news and about changes in, medicine or whatever it is. But select time so that you can update yourself and then kind of reflect back on those. Um, and same thing with when it comes to exercise and having, daily walks outside and things like that. Beyond that is just really finding activities that you enjoy and sticking to them. It can be very stressful to maintain a schedule where you're forcing yourself to go to the gym every day for at least 1 hour when you don't enjoy that activity. Versus if you were to go hiking because you enjoy doing that and you do it for only half an hour every day. So finding activities that you enjoy is also a key component of it instead of just forcing yourself to do things that you do not. Um, with that said, I'm just gonna jump into some breathing exercises. And if there's any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. Um, Being that it's a panel, we're not gonna be able to do like a group breathing exercise. But once you have, these tools, I highly encourage you to try to use them to do some of these exercises at home at any point. So, starting with breathing exercises, the main thing with them is just when you feel very nervous or anxious, or your mood is down, or whatever negative emotion you may be feeling. The idea is to kind of just ground you. I would and with that said, the main things with breathing exercises is that quickly you can lower your heart rate, your blood pressure, you can calm yourself down, you can change your patterns of negative thoughts, as well as help decrease the negative emotions. It doesn't necessarily target the idea of fixing all those problems, but it's just a way to kind of ground you a little bit so that you can move forward and find what the next step for the solution is. Um, so with that said, starting with the abdominal respiration technique, and this one is a very simple one. I do it in the office with patients at times, and I also encourage them to do at home. But the idea here is that you have a quiet environment, you're relaxed, and you're in a position that you're comfortable. It doesn't matter if you're sitting, doesn't matter if you're standing or laying down. As long as you're comfortable, that's what it matters. But here, what you're gonna do is you just place one hand on your chest and one in your abdomen, and you're gonna take deep breaths in and focusing on your breath, but also focusing on the movement of your hand that is in your abdomen. So you're gonna feel your abdomen going up and down. You're gonna breathe, trying to expand as much as you can your abdominal cavity versus trying to expand your chest wall. And you're just gonna focus on that movement for anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes. With any breathing exercise and with any meditation techniques that we're going to talk about, the more you do it, the better outcomes you're going to perceive. So even if you do an abdominal breathing technique and you don't feel immediate relief, it may be tomorrow when you try to do it again, you're gonna feel it affecting you a little better. Um, and we're going to go just briefly talk about some studies that discuss that in the next slides. But the idea here is just to kind of quickly ground you and bring you down to the reality that you're in. Next, we have rhythmic respirations, and this one is one that is not often seen. I do like using it too, mainly when someone cannot keep focus for too long, because it relies on the person counting as well. But the idea here is that your respiration rhythm changes, and it changes from person to person, but also from situation to situation. So here, what you're going to do is that you're actually going to measure your pulse during the whole cycle of one breath. So when you breathe in and when you breathe out, that is a whole cycle, and you're going to measure your pulse during that time. So say that you take a deep breath in and you exhale and you fully exhale, and during that time, if you count a pulse of 6, what you're going to do then is that for you're going to use that as your anchor and as your reference for when you're doing the breathing exercise, so that again you put yourself in a comfortable position. Hands doesn't matter if they're in your abdomen, on your chest at this point for this one. Here is just about being comfortable. But if your pulse was 6 during that breathing exercise, what you're going to do is you're going to inhale for 6 seconds, and then you're going to hold your breath for 3 seconds, which will be half of your pulse. And then you're going to forcefully exhale for 6 seconds as well. Again, the idea is expanding your lungs as much as possible and then exhaling as much as possible and having that half time in between. If your pulse was 10 and you're really nervous, you're going to inhale for 10 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds, and then exhale for 10 seconds. So here you're going to do that anywhere again from 5 to 10 minutes, but the idea here is that your pulse may be different at any given points depending on your level of stress or what you're going through, and what it is that that situation is causing an effect on you. But for you to be able to count that pulse either in your wrist or in your neck during, again, one breathing exercise, and then adapting to each situation accordingly. Um, Here, you just focus on the counting part as you breathe in and breathe out, and that kind of like makes you not think about anything else because you have to focus on the counting and on the breathing together. So this one is a little better into bringing you, grounding you a little bit and making you focus versus the other one where intrusive thoughts may come and go, and it's a little harder to manage. Um, so these are the two main breathing exercises that I want to talk about today. There's many, many, many more, but those are two good starting points that anyone can use. Again, I use it with my patients in the office. I use it at home. You can use it at work as well, just for like 5 minutes if you wanna, find a nice corner for you to just do some breathing exercises, and it does really help. So here the idea was to do some of them together, but I think that just based on time, we're not going to be able to as well. But so let's talk about some meditation then. um, so when it comes to meditation, and I'm sorry, I meant to put mindfulness there as well. But when it comes to meditation, this part is a little hard. I think that there's a lot of preconceived ideas of meditation and what it is just based on movies and whatnot. That you see people sitting on the mountains and doing the sign and chanting their mantras and all of that. But meditation varies from person to person. But the general idea is just, psychologically speaking, just to liberate the mind from negative thoughts. That does not mean suppressing them, but rather it means accepting them and letting them go. And it also doesn't mean that you're going to be able to change them then and there, but again, accepting them and then on the long term, finding solutions for those things. Meditation has been shown to, in various studies, to improve sleep, blood pressure, attention, and memory, heart rate. I'm going to put some studies in the next slide too that you can refer to, in terms of other benefits. But it also involves breathing techniques. Meditation is not a thing of its own, but it's a mix of breathing techniques and mindful techniques, and everything that encompasses mindfulness really falls within meditation too. But the main thing too is that meditation, and that's what I tell my patients, meditation is just like any medication that you take for anxiety and depression. The more you do it, the better outcomes you're going to have it. It doesn't mean that you have to do it for 1 hour or 2 hours every day, but even 5 to 10 minutes every day helps significantly. And I say this because, in terms of what meditation is, meditation essentially, the meditative states is essentially a state where your brain is emitting alpha waves, which are the relaxation waves. They're associated with deep relaxation states. They're not seen only in meditation, but they're also seen through prayer, through deep focus when someone is drawing and painting. So technically, all of those fall within meditation. So if someone says that they don't want to meditate, but they want to pray every night, that can also count with meditation in the sense of deep focus, deep relaxation state. Um, so when it comes to studies that have been done about meditation, a lot of them, and there's many out there, but a lot of them have found that it does help significantly reduce and also reduce stress, and also the release of stress-related cytokines. And over time, it also has a component of like neuromodulatory effect, meaning that it changes areas of your brain anatomically that are related to emotion and sensations. So that's really interesting to know because this is something that you can do it yourself at home at any given time. You can do it at work, or there's people that are really good at it and do it while driving too. It's one of those things that there's a lot of really good effects, a lot of things that you can do with it. Sorry. Um, when it comes to, the more psychological aspect of benefits of meditation, and when I say psychological, I mean, like the Psycho 101 that we took in college when we learned about the ego, the other parts of the identity. But with through meditation, the idea is to let go of the ego part. And being that the ego, as a refresher, is the part of ourselves that they're more rational for can that focus a lot on the rationalization of emotions rather than just the acceptance and the letting go. So the idea here is to let that go, find the balance between the your mind, your body, and your spirit, which are all parts of the mental health, and just kind of ground yourself to that idea, to that moment. As mentioned, it has many effects in the body, biologically speaking, but it can also increase the release of dopamine, which further puts you down into that deep relaxation state and makes you feel better throughout rather than when you did before. And again, it focuses on the here and now, which is the whole idea of any breathing exercise and meditation is to just kind of ground you to where you are at that given point. So here, key points to a good meditation, which again, it doesn't just mean sitting down with your legs crossed and your hands in your knees and saying and chanting the mantra, but rather is being in a comfortable position, focus on your breathing in a quiet place. And but more important than that is just really being able to be open to compromise with yourself and be open to getting out of your comfort zone and challenging those negative thoughts or the stress ideas or stressful thoughts and emotions that you had throughout that day. The idea here is really to be able to challenge yourself to be able to come to some sort of compromise with those emotions. Again, it's very hard to just let to suppress those kind of negative emotions. So here is just finding that middle ground where you are happy with moving forward. And then, on the next day when you meditate again, kind of addressing them again and seeing what else can we compromise on now with yourself in terms of how you feel in order to be able to get some better outcomes overall. The other portion too is that to not meditate after your meal, and that just helps with concentration more than anything. After you eat, a lot of blood flow goes to your stomach, and it's really hard to focus when you're trying to deeply meditate. So just wait like an hour or two until after you eat to be able to do that, or do it right before you eat for 5 minutes. That's also good. Um, oops. So, when it comes to meditation and positioning, again, I kind of briefly talked about that as well. Um, and this is more so if you're sitting down, because sitting can be pretty uncomfortable. So, if you want to find a wall and lean against it, or if you want to lay down on the ground. But here, the idea again is just for you to find any position that is comfortable for you. It doesn't matter if you're sitting, laying, standing, though standing may be a little hard, but the idea is for you to be comfortable. And again, the focus of meditation is on your breathing and not on just suppressing emotions or suppressing thoughts. A lot of people, when they meditate, they say, "Oh, I'm not able to, I'm always thinking about something. I'm not able to suppress my thoughts." And that's not the goal. The goal, and I like this reference that was made to me when I did meditation course years ago. But thoughts are supposed to be like clouds when you're meditating. You just watch them come and you watch them go. That's for positive and negative thoughts. You just watch them come, process them, and let them go. So, there's this constant flow of thoughts and emotions coming through you when you're meditating. And the idea is just let them come and go. It's not to fight them, it's not to suppress them, and it's not to try to change them there and there. So that's the main thing as well that people struggle with, which is just finding that middle ground where they can just let thoughts and emotions just pass by. With that said, if someone struggles a lot with that component of meditation, the other thing you can do is guided meditation, which is one of my favorite types. I was going to play this one, but if you want, I can send this links to Amanda after to share with everyone. But with guided meditation, the idea is that you are following what someone is saying and reflecting on what they are saying. So a lot of times what I like best is the body scan guided meditation, which essentially they just make you hyper aware of body parts of your body parts, and they kind of go from one to another. So like from your toes to your feet, to your shin, to your knees, to your thighs, until you kind of like scan your entire body. That process can take anywhere from like 10 minutes to half an hour, but the idea is that someone is guiding you through what you should be focusing on, and they're also helping you reflect on any emotion that you may be having toward at that moment. There's guided meditations that are focused solely for stress management. There's others that are focused solely for depressive like symptoms. And there's a vast array of them out there. I do like them a lot because I do struggle with keeping my thoughts in check. So guided meditation helps me more than any other type out there. Um, with that said, we're going to talk about the emotional freedom technique, and I'm going to talk about this very, very briefly, and more so just again to kind of bring awareness to it, because this is a technique that is largely used in psychotherapy, and there's not a lot of good data behind it compared to like meditation. It's relatively new. It's focused on, or rather, it's pretty old, but it's relatively new being studied. There's some good studies on PTSD with people that were in the military and some good results with those. But there's not a really good or large amount of data that supports it, except for these, smaller studies that were done. With that said, it's been through the studies, it's been shown to help with PTSD symptoms as well as anxiety management. But the idea here that, and it's a little harder to do this one, but the idea here is again to kind of change, and this is the one that you will be challenging your emotions and your perceptions. This is the one that you're going to effectively work hard to try to change your sensations and emotions. Um, so with this, you combine meditation, you combine mantra. So mantras are, and we're gonna go over that last too, but mantras are essentially phrases that you can tell yourself to kind of challenge emotions and feelings. And you also combine tapping technique, which it's a sort of like acupressure technique, which is derived from like acupuncture. So again, usually you do that in psychotherapy, but if you have the time to look this up and are able to kind of like master it to some extent, you can do it at home too. And it's actually a very, very, very good exercise to do. So these are the starting with just with the tapping technique, the acupressure points. These are the main ones. So you start with the armpit, and then you kind of move from the top of your head down to your collarbone. So you start at the armpit, then you go to the center of your head, then your inner eyebrow, the around the eyes, and then around the mouth, and then you stop at the collarbone. You're gonna be tapping those as you do some of this. So with this technique, you identify the feeling that you want to address at that point. So say that I'm feeling very stressed because my work's super overwhelming and things at home are not great or anything like that. You're going to phrase that and put in and challenge that feeling in a phrase. So even though I feel stressed, I love and accept myself deeply and completely. You're going to keep repeating that as you tap through those points that we mentioned before. Um, the key here is identifying an intensity scale. So in the beginning of the exercise, you're going to say between 0 and 10. The intensity in which I feel very stressed is like 9. When you think about or when you say that phrase that you created, what image comes to mind? Is it your family? Is it a negative image? Reflect on that. And again, you're going to reflect on your physical response to that phrase as well as your emotional response. So when you say those phrases and you create this mantra in a way, you're going to be thinking about what it is that how your body and how your mind reacts to that. And it's really cool. I've seen this done to other people as well as an observer. And when people, create this phrase, there's very responses from ranging from like pure rage and anger to people that just go into like deep depressive states. And then as the exercise goes, they kind of just work through that and that improves. Um, so after you identify that phrase, you're going, like I said, you're going to be tapping through the points that were mentioned in the picture, and you're going to be challenging those and repeating that mantra. However, after a little while, you're going to switch that to a phrase that challenges your original one. So, instead of saying, even though I feel stressed, I love and accept myself deeply, you're going to say, I feel stressed because my boss does not like my work. I feel like I may lose my job, or whatever else that your fear is to address that. Then you're going to do a couple more cycles saying that second phrase or mantra, the negative one, and then you're going to go back to your original mantra. So, and I'm sorry this is a little confusing. There's a lot to the emotional freedom techniques. I just wanted to make you all aware that it exists because a lot of people don't know about it. It is used in psychotherapy, but it is something that if you just take half an hour to an hour to read on it, you can try to do it at home and get really really good results. At least from and that's anecdotal, not based on other studies. Um, but so with that said, I'm gonna just go into the Ho'oponopono, which is again it's a Hawaiian mantra technique. And the this one it focus on preset words. So you would be using these ones: I love myself, or I love you, I'm sorry, forgive me, and thank you. And with this one, the idea is that you just repeat those as a mantra as many times as you see fit, either in the morning or before bed, or if you're driving to work and you're like nervous or whatever it is, you're going to be repeating those specific words. Um, when it comes to mantras, and this is a type of mantra is essentially just like phrases or attributes that you create for yourself and that you can repeat as often as you can to kind of ground you and bring you down to a more like level-headed state. um, when it comes to mantras, there's not a lot of studies that support the effectiveness of it. But granted, it is hard to kind of like track down and quantify it too. With that said, there are studies that were done in conjunction with meditation techniques as well as emotional freedom tapping techniques, and those seem to have better results. But I like to put this out there because mantras are something that are very easy for anyone to do and just create that kind of um, either three attributes, or if you want to use these ones, which are the Ho'oponopono ones, you can also use. But they're very good to kind of make you feel a little better in that situation and kind of just give you a little boost of energy to move forward with your day. With that said, as you say those words, for this one specifically, the I love myself, I'm sorry, forgive me, and thank you. The idea here is to challenge whatever negative emotion you're feeling at that given time. So if you say I love myself or I love you, you say why you're thinking in the background why it is that you feel that you're saying that. When you say I'm sorry, you're again saying why you're sorry for it and should you be sorry in the first place. When you say forgive me, same to I'm sorry, and thank you, same to the ones before. So the idea here is that you're kind of challenging those as you repeat them, and the more repetition you do, the more reflection you're going to have into those emotions. That's going to help you challenge a lot of misconceptions, as well as negative feelings that you've created that may not be true, and that over time, the more you say it, the more you're going to realize that. But the point here, the idea with mantras and with this is that it revolves around forgiveness. You forgiving yourself or forgiving someone else, so that you can be in peace. And that's the main thing really for that. Here, there are some other videos. There's one that kind of goes over the EFT, the emotional freedom technique, goes over it with you. There's a lot of really good videos on YouTube and other websites where people kind of like guide you through it. So there's some of them. Um, and then here's some of the reference as well. And that's